For centuries, humans dreamed of flight. Then in 1903, the Wright brothers showed it was possible. But 4 decades later, pilots faced a new invisible enemy, one that lived in the air itself. They called it the sound barrier, and many believed it could not be broken. When test pilots pushed their planes too close to Mach 1, wings shattered, engines exploded, bodies disappeared into the desert sky. What kind of man flies toward death at 700 miles per hour? And what happens when you punch through a wall that no one believed could be crossed? It all began with a farm boy and a machine shaped like a bullet. Charles Elwood Yeager wasn't a scientist, he wasn't an engineer. He was a boy who fixed tractors and hunted rabbits in the Appalachian hills of West Virginia. His hands knew metal, his eyes knew motion. And when the Second World War called, he answered not with a college degree, but with something rarer: fearlessness married to calm. By 1944, Yeager was a fighter ace. 13 kills. Shot down over France, he escaped on foot through the Pyrenees, back in the cockpit within weeks. After the war, the skies opened to a new question. Jets were faster than anything with propellers, but there was a limit. Around 760 miles per hour, strange forces took over. Controls froze, wings tore apart. Pilots called it compressibility, the engineers called it aerodynamic hell. In 1947, the United States Air Force began testing rocket-powered aircraft at Muroc Dry Lake in California's Mojave Desert. The goal was simple on paper: fly faster than sound. The reality was terrifying. They needed a pilot willing to die for science, someone disciplined, calm under pressure, someone who understood machines not through textbooks but through touch. They chose Chuck Yeager. He was 24 years old. The Bell X-1 looked nothing like an airplane. It was painted bright orange, easier to find in the wreckage, some joked. Shaped like a .50 caliber bullet, it had thin straight wings, a rocket engine that burned liquid oxygen and alcohol, and no landing gear. It couldn't take off on its own. A B-29 bomber had to carry it up to altitude and drop it like a bomb. Then the pilot would ignite the rockets and pray. The X-1 was Bell Aircraft's answer to a deadly puzzle. As planes approached the speed of sound, air molecules couldn't move out of the way fast enough. They compressed, shock waves formed, pilots lost control. Several had already died trying to break through. Jeffrey de Havilland Jr., one of Britain's best, disintegrated in midair during a high-speed test dive. His DH-108 came apart so violently that investigators found only scattered pieces across the English countryside. The sound barrier had earned its name, the invisible wall. Yeager knew the risks. He studied every report. He flew the X-1 in glide tests first, no engine, just falling with style. Then powered flights, inching closer to Mach 1. Each mission taught him something new about how the plane behaved as it neared the edge. But on October 12, 1947, 2 days before the scheduled record attempt, Yeager made a mistake. He went horseback riding with his wife, Glennies. Racing through the desert night, he didn't see the gate. His horse did and stopped hard. Yeager flew forward and slammed into the wooden rail. 2 ribs cracked. He told no one, not the engineers, not the doctors. If he grounded himself now, someone else would get the flight. Someone else would break the barrier. So on the morning of October 14th, Chuck Yeager climbed into the cockpit of the X-1 with broken ribs and used a sawed-off broomstick to close the hatch because he couldn't lift his arm high enough to pull the lever. Would this be the flight that changed everything, or the one that killed him? At dawn, the B-29 taxied down the runway with the X-1 tucked beneath its belly like an egg. Yeager sat in the cramped cockpit, breathing pure oxygen, watching the gauges. At 20,000 feet, the bomb bay doors opened. Cold air rushed in. At 25,000 feet, the drop. The X-1 fell away from the mother ship. For 3 seconds, Yeager was weightless, falling through nothing. Then he hit the ignition switches. The rocket engines roared to life. The X-1 shot forward like it had been fired from a cannon. The desert floor blurred below. The sky ahead turned from blue to violet as he climbed. Mach 0.85. The plane began to shake. The control stick vibrated in his hands. Mach 0.9. The shaking grew worse. The elevators, the control surfaces on the tail, began to lose authority. The nose wanted to pitch up. Yeager fought it, his broken ribs screaming with every movement. Mach 0.96. The buffeting was so violent he could barely read the instruments. This was the zone where pilots died, where metal failed, where the wall waited. Then Mach 1. And suddenly silence. The shaking stopped, the controls smoothed out. The needle on the Mach meter twitched past 1, then 1.05, then 1.06. 700 miles per hour, faster than sound itself. From the ground, engineers saw nothing unusual. Then, seconds later, a sound like distant thunder rolled across the desert floor. A sonic boom. The first one ever heard from a manned aircraft. Yeager's voice crackled over the radio, flat and calm as ever. "Hey, Ridley, make a note, will you? There's something wrong with this Mach meter. It's gone kind of screwy." Jack Ridley, his flight engineer, knew immediately what it meant. They'd done it. There was no parade, no press conference. The flight was classified, a military secret in the early Cold War. For months, only a handful of people knew what Chuck Yeager had done. When the story finally broke in December, the world learned that the sound barrier, the invisible wall that had killed so many, was not a wall at all. It was a threshold, and it had been crossed. Yeager kept flying, faster, higher. He became the face of the test pilot era, a generation of men who flew experimental planes with no ejection seats, no computers, no safety nets. They mapped the edges of the sky with their lives. But Chuck Yeager never saw himself as a hero. He was a mechanic who loved to fly, a hunter who trusted his instincts, a man who believed that if the math said it could be done, then it could be done. The X-1 flight opened the door to everything that followed: supersonic fighters, the space race, commercial jets that carried millions across oceans. Every time you hear a jet break the sound barrier, that distant crack in the sky, you're hearing the echo of October 14th, 1947. Chuck Yeager lived to be 97 years old. He flew into his 90s, and when asked what it felt like to break the sound barrier, he shrugged and said, "It was a job, and I was good at my job. Breaking barriers isn't about speed, it's about courage." Chuck Yeager didn't chase glory. He chased the truth that the impossible only exists until someone does it. From the Wright brothers at Kitty Hawk to the sound barrier above the Mojave, every flight forward begins with one question. What if we can? This is Time to Fly Stories, where every plane tells a legend. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real stories from the sky. Until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon.